What happens when Margot Robbie walks onto the set of The View expecting a routine press stop, and instead finds herself locked in a heated, unscripted clash with Whoopi Goldberg that no one in the studio, or online, will ever forget? Before we dive into this explosive moment, make sure you subscribe to Stage View right now, like this video, and drop a comment below telling us where you're watching from. Because this story doesn't just unfold, it detonates. The studio lights glow warmer than usual that morning. The set of The View is polished, bright, deceptively calm. The iconic round table gleams under the cameras, coffee mugs placed with surgical precision. The audience buzzes with anticipation, a low hum of whispers and excitement that feels almost electric. Backstage, Margot Robbie adjusts the cuff of her tailored blazer. She smiles, poised, luminous, Hollywood's golden girl. Fresh off a blockbuster press tour, she's used to cameras, to applause, to charm-heavy interviews about costumes and behind-the-scenes bloopers. Her team reassures her. It'll be fun. It's The View. They love you. But live television has a pulse of its own. Out at the table, Whoopi Goldberg leans back in her chair, scanning her notes with a knowing expression. She's done this for decades. Politicians, actors, activists, she's sparred with them all. And today, there's something in the air. The show has already touched on politics in the earlier segment. The crowd is warmed up. The co-hosts are energized. The temperature is higher than usual. The announcer's voice booms through the studio. Please welcome Academy Award-nominated actress Margot Robbie. Applause erupts. Margot steps onto the stage, smile bright, waving with effortless grace. She hugs the hosts one by one, ending with Whoopi. Their embrace is polite, warm on the surface, unreadable underneath. They sit. The first few minutes are smooth. Laughter. Compliments about her latest role. A playful exchange about stunt training. Joyful. Safe. Then Whoopi tilts her head slightly, fingers laced together. Margot, she begins, her voice calm but edged with intent. Your new film has sparked some pretty intense conversations. Some people are calling it empowering. Others not so much. Did you expect that kind of backlash? The audience shifts in their seats. Margot's smile doesn't vanish, but it tightens. We knew it would start conversations, she says evenly. Art is meant to do that. Whoopi nods slowly. Sure, but when critics say it sends the wrong message to young women, that it glamorizes something problematic, what do you say to that? A murmur ripples through the crowd. The co-hosts exchange glances. This isn't in the pre-interview notes. Margot inhales, barely noticeable, but there. I think, she replies carefully, that it's easy to reduce a complex story to a headline. The film explores contradictions. That doesn't mean it endorses them. Whoopi leans forward now. But don't you think celebrities have a responsibility? Especially when millions of young people are watching. The word responsibility hangs heavy between them. Margot's posture straightens. I do believe in responsibility, she says. But I also believe in trusting audiences. Women, especially young women, are smart. They can engage with complicated narratives. A few claps scatter across the audience. Whoopi raises an eyebrow. No one's saying they're not smart, but influence is real. There it is. The first spark. Margot's eyes flash, just for a second. Of course it is. But I don't think the answer is to water down stories out of fear. The studio air thickens. One of the co-hosts jumps in, attempting to lighten the tone. It's definitely sparked debate online. My daughter and I argued about it for hours. Laughter breaks out, but it's nervous. Whoopi doesn't let go. Here's my thing, she says, voice steady but firmer now. When you portray certain lifestyles as glamorous, even ironically, some people don't catch the irony. They see the glam. Margot turns fully toward her. The smile is gone now, replaced with something more grounded. But isn't that true of almost every story ever told? Should we stop making crime films because someone might glamorize the villain? A louder reaction from the crowd. A mix of applause and ooze. Whoopi's lips pressed together briefly. That's not what I'm saying. It kind of is, Margot replies, softly but unmistakably. The tension is no longer subtle. Backstage producers exchange looks. One whispers, cut to commercial soon. Whoopi exhales, leaning back. Let me ask you this directly, she says. Do you feel any responsibility if someone misinterprets your work and it influences them negatively? Margot pauses. This is the moment. The cameras zoom in slightly, capturing every flicker of emotion. Inside, her thoughts race. She knows this clip will live forever online. One wrong word becomes a headline. One defensive tone becomes diva meltdown. But she also feels something else, a line being drawn. I feel responsible for being honest, she says at last. For telling stories truthfully. I don't feel responsible for every possible interpretation of art. That would make storytelling impossible. The audience erupts, half applause, half stunned silence. Whoopi's expression shifts. Not angry, not amused, calculating. So, she says slowly, you're comfortable separating yourself from the consequences. Margot blinks. That's not what I said, but it's what some people will hear. And suddenly, it's no longer about a movie. It's about power, about generational perspectives, about who gets to define impact. Margot leans in now, matching Whoopi's posture. With respect, Whoopi, I think sometimes we underestimate audiences because we're afraid. A sharp intake of breath from somewhere in the crowd. Afraid of what? Whoopi asks. Afraid of letting women explore flawed characters without moral disclaimers. The applause this time is louder. Whoopi folds her hands. Nobody's afraid of flawed women, she says. We just know the world judges them differently. The words land heavy. For a split second, something shifts, not hostility but understanding. Two women from different eras, shaped by different battles, circling the same issue from opposite sides. But live television doesn't slow down for nuance. A co-host interjects again, voice bright but strained. Okay, wow, this is getting deep. Laughter breaks the tension, but only slightly. Margot offers a small smile, but her eyes remain intense. I appreciate the question, she says. I really do. These conversations matter. I just don't want fear to dictate creativity. Whoopi nods once. And I don't want creativity to ignore reality. There it is. The line that will be clipped, replayed, dissected. The director's voice echoes faintly from offstage. 30 seconds. The audience senses the approaching commercial break, but no one moves. Phones subtly rise and lapse. Even in a no-phone studio, someone always captures something. Whoopi looks directly at Margot. Maybe the real issue, she says, softer now, is that we're still figuring out how much power stories really have. Margot's voice lowers to match. And maybe that's why we have to keep telling them. A beat. The camera cuts to a wide shot of the table. 5 women, 1 charged conversation, a studio holding its breath. And we'll be right back, the announcer declares. The music swells. The red light dims. But the tension doesn't disappear when the cameras stop rolling. It lingers. Whoopi adjusts her glasses, turning slightly toward Margot off mic. Their words are inaudible to viewers at home, but their expressions tell a story, measured, intense, unresolved. In the audience, whispers erupt instantly. Did you see that? She stood her ground. Whoopi wasn't backing down. Producers rush in with cue cards and hurried smiles. Great TV, one murmurs. But no one yet realizes what's about to happen. Because when the show comes back from commercial, something changes. Not louder, not angrier, sharper. And somewhere in the control room, a clip is already being marked for social media. By the end of the hour, this debate won't just be a segment. It will be a viral moment. And it's only just beginning. The studio lights flare back to full brightness as the show returns from commercial, but something has shifted. The applause sign flashes, and the audience responds on cue. Yet the energy is no longer playful. It's charged, expectant, like everyone senses they're about to witness something unscripted. At the round table of The View, the smiles are thinner now. Whoopi Goldberg straightens her notes, then looks up, eyes locking once more with Margot Robbie. The director counts down silently with his fingers. 3, 2, 1. We're back with Margot Robbie, Whoopi says, her tone smooth but deliberate. And before the break, we were talking about responsibility in storytelling. The word hangs there again. Responsibility. Margot nods, composed, hands folded loosely on the table. But inside, her pulse hasn't quite slowed. She knows this could tip either way, toward mutual respect or toward something sharper. Whoopi leans forward slightly. I want to clarify something, she says. This isn't about censorship. It's about impact. When you've got millions of followers, when young girls dress like your characters for Halloween, when they quote your lines, that's influence. Real influence. A few audience members clap in agreement. Margot tilts her head, listening. She doesn't interrupt. And influence, Whoopi continues, comes with weight. You don't get the spotlight without carrying some of it. The camera cuts to Margot's face. Calm. Focused. But her jaw tightens almost imperceptibly. I agree with that, she says carefully. Influence has weight, but I think what we're debating is where that weight begins and ends. A co-host jumps in, trying to balance the scale. But don't you think some audiences blur the line between character and actor? Margot turns toward her. Of course they do. That's been happening since the beginning of cinema. But if we start holding actors accountable for fictional characters' choices, she trails off, letting the thought linger. Whoopi picks it up. Then what? We absolve ourselves completely. The room goes quiet again. Margot exhales slowly. No, we engage. We talk about it, like this. But we don't preemptively dilute stories because someone might misread them. Her voice is steady now, stronger than before. Whoopi studies her. There's no hostility in her expression, but there's challenge. The kind that comes from someone who has lived through decades of public scrutiny, backlash, misinterpretation. Whoopi says softer, when I was coming up in this business, there were roles I turned down because I knew they'd reinforce stereotypes. Not because I was afraid of art, but because I was tired of seeing my community boxed in. A murmur of understanding moves through the audience. Margot listens intently. So when I ask about responsibility, Whoopi continues, it's not theoretical. It's personal. For a brief second, the tension transforms into something more layered. Margot nods slowly. I respect that. Truly. And I don't take that lightly. The audience quiets further, sensing this is no longer a debate for headlines. It's generational, experiential. But, Margot adds, her voice gaining a subtle edge, I also think that sometimes women, especially women in power, are expected to be moral gatekeepers in a way men simply aren't. That line lands. A ripple of applause spreads, louder this time. A few, that's right, echoes from the crowd. Whoopi raises an eyebrow. You think men don't get criticized? Oh, they do, Margot says quickly. But not in the same way. When a male actor plays a morally questionable character, it's brave or complex. When a woman does, it's concerning or irresponsible. A co-host nods vigorously. Whoopi doesn't dismiss it. Instead, she folds her hands, considering. That's a fair point, she admits. But let me flip it. When women break ground, they also set precedent. That's power too. Margot's eyes flash with intensity. Exactly. And that's why I don't want us shrinking stories out of fear of backlash. Breaking ground is messy. The audience applauds again, stronger, more unified. In the control room, producers exchange looks. Social media is already lighting up. A staffer whispers. The live feed comments are exploding. Back at the table, the temperature inches higher. Whoopi leans back, crossing her arms loosely. I don't think anyone's asking you to shrink stories, she says. We're asking whether you ever draw a line. Margot pauses. Inside her mind, 1,000 PR alarms are ringing. But something steadier rises above them, conviction. Yes, she says. I draw a line at dishonesty. I won't glamorize something if the story doesn't justify it. But I won't avoid portraying flawed humanity either. And if people still walk away glamorizing it, Whoopi presses. Margot meets her gaze without flinching. Then that's a reflection of the culture, not just the art. A collective, oh, sweeps through the studio. One of the co-hosts covers her mouth, eyes wide. The tension is undeniable now, not shouting, not chaos, but two sharp intellects colliding in real time. Whoopi's lips curve slightly, not quite a smile. So you're saying society's the problem? I'm saying art mirrors society, Margot replies. It doesn't create it in a vacuum. Silence. The audience doesn't know whether to clap or hold their breath. Whoopi taps her fingers lightly on the table. You know what makes this interesting? She says. You're not defensive. Margot's brow lifts. Should I be? Laughter breaks out, genuine this time. Whoopi chuckles softly. No, but a lot of people in your position would be. Margot relaxes slightly, sensing a shift. I'm not here to win an argument, she says. I'm here to have the conversation. There's a sincerity in her voice that cuts through the tension. But then, unexpectedly, a co-host reads from a cue card. Actually, we've got a clip from a critic who called the film dangerously seductive. Let's roll that. Margot's expression tightens again as the screen behind them lights up. A commentator's voice fills the studio, accusing the film of glamorizing destructive behavior and labeling it tone-deaf in a fragile cultural moment. When the clip ends, the room feels heavier. Whoopi turns back to Margot. That's strong criticism. It is, Margot agrees. And it doesn't bother you? Another pause. It challenges me, Margot says honestly. But it doesn't make me regret the work. A small but firm statement. Whoopi studies her face, searching for cracks, for doubt. "You're very sure of yourself," Whoopi says quietly. Margot's response is immediate. "No, I'm sure of the intention." The audience applauds again, louder than before. In that instant, something shifts beyond the debate itself. It's no longer about right or wrong. It's about presence, poise under pressure. A young actress standing her ground opposite a legendary host who has built a career on asking the hard questions. And the crowd feels it. One woman in the audience stands briefly, clapping harder than anyone else before sitting back down, slightly embarrassed. Whoopi notices. She leans forward one last time. "Let me ask you something personal," she says. "Have you ever worried that being so outspoken might cost you?" The question slices through the air. Margot doesn't look away. "Every day. A beat. But staying silent would cost me more." The audience erupts. Not polite applause, but a surge. Cheers. A few people rise to their feet. Even some of the co-hosts clap. Whoopi doesn't. She watches. Not with anger. Not with resentment. With respect. The applause slowly fades. Whoopi nods once slowly. "That," she says, "I can understand." The tension eases, not completely, but enough to breathe again. The segment is nearing its end. The producers signal 2 minutes left. One of the co-hosts pivots the conversation toward lighter ground. Upcoming projects, behind-the-scenes stories, but the emotional undercurrent remains. The earlier clash hums beneath every word. As the hour wraps, Whoopi turns to Margot one final time. "I appreciate you engaging," she says. "Thank you for challenging me," Margot replies. They shake hands, firm, deliberate. But as the applause swells and the credits begin to roll, something else is happening beyond the studio walls. Clips are already being sliced into 15-second segments. Margot Robbie shuts down Whoopi Goldberg. Whoopi calls out Margot Live. Generational clash goes viral. The narrative is being written in real time, and neither woman has any control over how it will be framed. Backstage, as the cameras cut and the audience begins filing out, producers rush past each other, phones in hand. "It's trending," someone whispers. Margot's publicist approaches with a tight smile. "You were great," she says, but her eyes reveal calculation. Across the hallway, Whoopi removes her mic slowly, thoughtful. The debate may have ended on camera. But outside that studio, it's only just igniting. The hallway outside the studio hums with a different kind of noise now. Not applause, not stage-managed laughter, but the frantic rhythm of phones vibrating, notifications exploding, producers whispering in urgent tones. Inside her dressing room, Margot Robbie sits in front of a mirror framed by bright bulbs. The makeup artist gently dabs at her cheek, but Margot barely notices. Her phone, resting on the vanity, lights up every few seconds. Trending. Clipped. Shared. Reposted. Her publicist steps closer, lowering her voice. "It's everywhere." Margot exhales slowly. "Good everywhere or bad everywhere?" A pause. "Both." Across the building, in her own dressing room, Whoopi Goldberg removes her glasses and rubs the bridge of her nose. A producer stands near the door, tablet in hand. "The clip where she says men aren't judged the same way? It's blowing up," he says. "Millions of views already." Whoopi nods, unsurprised. "Of course it is." Back on set just minutes earlier, the final handshake had looked composed, respectful, even warm. But now the narrative machine has taken over. Short captions flatten nuance into combat. Team Margot. Team Whoopi. The internet doesn't traffic in gray areas. Margot finally picks up her phone. The first headline she sees reads, "Margot Robbie claps back at Whoopi Goldberg in fiery exchange on The View." Claps back. She hadn't felt like she was clapping back. She'd felt like she was defending something fragile and vital. But that's not how algorithms frame complexity. Her phone buzzes again, a text from a fellow actor. "You were fearless." Another from a director. "Powerful stuff. Proud of you." Then a different tone, a message from a brand partner. "Call us ASAP." In Whoopi's room, the tone is calmer but heavier. One of the younger producers scrolls nervously. "Some people are saying you were too hard on her." Whoopi arches an eyebrow. "Too hard? They think you were trying to corner her." Whoopi lets out a soft laugh, not amused but seasoned. "It's a talk show. We talk." The producer hesitates. "They're saying it felt personal." Whoopi's expression shifts slightly at that word. Personal. She thinks back to what she said about turning down roles, about stereotypes, about lived experience. It had been personal, honest, and honesty on live television is volatile. Meanwhile, in the digital world, the moment mutates. A slowed-down clip of Margot saying, "Staying silent would cost me more," overlays dramatic music. Another edit isolates Whoopi's line, "You're comfortable separating yourself from the consequences." No context, no buildup, just impact. By late afternoon, the debate from The View is no longer confined to daytime television. It's being dissected by commentators, reaction channels, podcasters. One viral tweet reads, "Margot Robbie just schooled Whoopi Goldberg on modern feminism." Another counters, "Whoopi asked the real questions." Celebrities can't dodge accountability forever. The divide widens. Back in her dressing room, Margot stands, pacing slowly. The adrenaline from the live exchange has faded, replaced by something more introspective. Did I say it right? Did it come off defensive? She replays the moment in her mind. The question about responsibility, the comment about men and women being judged differently, the line about silence costing more. Her publicist watches her carefully. "You were articulate," she says. "Grounded. You didn't attack her." "But that's not how it'll be framed," Margot murmurs. And she's right, because by evening, primetime news segments are running banners beneath the clip. Explosive showdown on The View. Showdown, as if it had been a duel. Across town, Whoopi sits at a small table in her apartment, the city lights glowing through the window. She doesn't scroll as much, she's seen cycles like this before. But even she can't ignore the sheer speed of it. A friend calls. "I saw it," the voice says. "You okay?" Whoopi smiles faintly. "I asked questions." She answered, "That's not what the internet's saying." Whoopi chuckles softly. The internet rarely says what actually happened. But even she feels it, the subtle shift. The way a conversation about art and responsibility has been reframed as generational warfare. The next morning, the producers of The View hold an emergency meeting. Ratings from the previous episode have spiked dramatically. "This could be huge for us," one executive says. "It already is," another replies, projecting live engagement numbers on the screen. Clips from the exchange have crossed tens of millions of views overnight. One producer clears her throat. "We need to decide how to address it on tomorrow's show. Address it, feed it, control it, or risk being controlled by it." Meanwhile, Margot's team gathers around a conference table in a sleek office. Laptops open, coffee untouched. "There's pressure to release a statement," her publicist says. "Some outlets are asking if you felt ambushed." Margot's eyes widen. "Ambushed? No, but that narrative's forming," the publicist continues. "If we don't shape the story, someone else will." Margot leans back in her chair, thinking. She hadn't felt ambushed. Challenged, yes. Pushed, definitely. But not attacked. "I don't want to escalate it," she says finally. "It was a conversation." Her manager nods. Then maybe that's the message. At the same time, Whoopi sits in a quiet studio corner before the next day's taping. A makeup artist brushes powder across her face. "Are you going to mention it?" the artist asks gently. Whoopi considers. "If I don't," she says, "it looks like I'm avoiding it. And if you do, it keeps it alive." The red light on the camera flickers as the crew prepares for rehearsal. Back online, something unexpected begins happening. A longer, unedited clip of the exchange surfaces, posted by a viewer who recorded it from the live broadcast. Without dramatic cuts or ominous music, the tone feels different. More thoughtful. Less combative. Comments beneath it read, "They actually listened to each other. This wasn't a fight. It was a debate. Why are headlines making it sound like a brawl?" The narrative fractures slightly. Not everyone is buying the showdown angle. By midday, even other celebrities weigh in. Some subtly support Margot's stance on creative freedom. Others praise Whoopi for raising accountability. But the most powerful shift happens quietly. Young women begin posting clips of Margot's line. "Staying silent would cost me more." They pair it with stories of speaking up at work. In classrooms. In their own families. The debate transcends the show. It becomes symbolic. Margot sees one of those videos late at night in her hotel room. A college student saying, "This made me feel like it's okay to defend my choices." She watches it twice, then 3 times. And something settles in her chest, not vindication, but clarity. Across the city, Whoopi watches a different clip, one highlighting her story about turning down roles that reinforce stereotypes. The comments beneath it are filled with gratitude. "Thank you for saying that. We needed to hear this perspective too. Whoopi nods to herself. Maybe the internet didn't destroy the nuance completely. But the storm isn't over. Because the next live taping of The View will address the viral moment directly. And this time, there won't be a guest buffer. It will be Whoopi, the co-hosts, and the aftermath. As Margot prepares to board a flight to her next press stop, her phone buzzes with a notification. The View announces they will respond to yesterday's viral debate. She stares at the screen. This isn't fading. It's evolving. And somewhere in millions of homes, viewers are waiting, not just for another argument, but for resolution. For clarity. For someone to either apologize or double down. The cameras are about to roll again. And the story is far from finished. The next morning, the atmosphere inside The View feels different before a single camera turns on. There's no guests seated at the table today. No promotional posters. No red carpet chatter. Just the hosts. And the weight of what happened. Backstage, producers move with deliberate calm, but their eyes betray urgency. Overnight ratings have surged. Social media engagement has doubled. Clips from the debate between Margot Robbie and Whoopi Goldberg have crossed tens of millions of views across platforms. Some headlines still scream showdown. Others have softened to powerful exchange. The narrative war continues. The audience files in, buzzing louder than usual. Many are holding on to the tension from yesterday. They want answers. Clarification. Maybe even a decisive victory. The music swells. The hosts walk out. Applause erupts, but it's charged applause. Curious applause. Whoopi sits at the table, expression steady. She waits for the noise to settle. So, she begins, adjusting her glasses slightly. Apparently we had a conversation yesterday. Laughter ripples through the audience, cautious but real. And apparently, she continues, it broke the internet. More laughter. Louder this time. One of the co-hosts jumps in. It's everywhere. My niece texted me like we were in a boxing match. The crowd chuckles. But Whoopi lifts her hand gently, signaling a shift back to seriousness. I want to say something, she says, because I've been doing this a long time. When we ask questions here, it's not to attack. It's to explore. She pauses. And yesterday, I asked Margot about responsibility in storytelling. She answered honestly. I pushed back. She pushed back. That's not a fight. That's dialogue. Applause begins, scattered at first, then stronger. In a hotel room hundreds of miles away, Margot watches a live stream clip on her phone. She's dressed casually now, no glam team, no studio lights. Just morning light filtering through curtains. Her team had advised her not to engage publicly again. Let it cool. Let the cycle move on. But she's watching. At the table, Whoopi continues. Some folks online framed it like there was bad blood. She shakes her head lightly. There isn't. A co-host nods. It was intense, sure. But important. Whoopi turns slightly toward the audience. We're allowed to disagree. Especially women. Especially across generations. The audience applauds again, this time without hesitation. Then she says something unexpected. I respect her. A quiet settles over the studio. She didn't dodge. She didn't shrink. She stood in her perspective. And I respect that. The applause that follows is the loudest yet. In her hotel room, Margot's expression softens. She hadn't realized she was holding tension in her shoulders until it releases. Back at the table, one of the co-hosts adds, and let's not forget, both of you were talking about protecting women. Just from different angles. That line resonates. Clips of this segment begin spreading almost immediately. Whoopi praises Margot after viral debate. Respect after the storm. The tone online begins to shift. Not entirely. The internet rarely moves in unison, but noticeably. Margot's phone buzzes. A text from her publicist. You may want to post something. Windows open. Margot stares at her screen for a long moment. Then she opens her social media app. Across town, Whoopi wraps up the segment with a final thought. Conversations like that? They're messy. They're uncomfortable. But I'd rather have them live imperfectly than not have them at all. The audience rises to its feet. Standing ovation. Not for a victory. For the moment. For the reminder that dialogue can survive disagreement. Hours later, Margot posts a short video from her hotel room. No script. No polish. I've seen a lot of headlines about yesterday, she begins, voice calm. I just want to say, I appreciated the questions. I appreciated the pushback. We can disagree and still respect each other. She pauses, choosing her next words carefully. Stories matter. Conversations matter too. Within minutes, the clip spreads, and something remarkable happens. Instead of reigniting the fire, it cools it. Comment sections that had been battlegrounds begin filling with different tones. This is how adults handle conflict. More of this, please. Respect to both women. News outlets pivot their coverage yet again. What began as a supposed clash morphs into a case study in modern discourse. Experts weigh in on generational feminism. Media analysts dissect how quickly conflict is exaggerated for clicks. Communication coaches praise the exchange as an example of assertive yet controlled debate. The viral moment evolves. It's no longer just about whether art carries responsibility. It's about how two powerful women navigated public disagreement without tearing each other down. Days later, when ratings numbers are finalized, the episode ranks among the most watched of the season. Producers call it lightning in a bottle. But for Margot and Whoopi, it lingers differently. In a quiet moment before another taping, Whoopi reflects on the whirlwind. She's weathered controversies far uglier than this. But this one feels instructive. Not because it was explosive, because it didn't become destructive. Meanwhile, at a press junket overseas, a reporter asks Margot, "Do you regret how heated it got?" Margot smiles slightly. "It wasn't heated," she says. "It was honest." That quote makes headlines too. And slowly, the frenzy fades, replaced by something steadier. Clips of their handshake resurface. Their mutual acknowledgement. The applause. The viral storm settles into a lasting impression. That disagreement, when handled with composure, can amplify voices instead of silencing them. But the internet never forgets entirely. Months from now, the clip will resurface during another debate about celebrity influence. Years from now, it may be referenced as a defining television moment of the era. Because what happened on that stage wasn't just tension. It was contrast, experience and modernity, caution and boldness. Two perspectives colliding, not to destroy but to sharpen. And maybe that's why it went viral. Not because someone lost, but because neither woman backed down and neither woman attacked. They stood. They spoke. They listened. Now it's your turn. What did you think about that moment? Were you Team Margot? Team Whoopi? Or did you see value in both sides of the debate? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. We want to hear your take. And if you love deep dives into explosive, emotional celebrity moments like this, make sure you subscribe to Stage View and turn on notifications so you never miss the next dramatic story unfolding live before the world. Because sometimes the most powerful viral moments aren't the ones where someone falls. They're the ones where everyone stands their ground.